Transformers, more than meets the eye. Anyone recall what that little jingle is about? If you grew up with kids, boys probably, or even recently, you remember those Transformers, those little toys that were cars and trucks and jets that somehow turned in, as you moved them around, into these intergalactic superheroes, or even Decepticons, the evil side of those things. Became a cartoon series and then now a movie franchise. More than meets the eye. Hiding in plain sight. Nothing remarkable to the view, but amazing warriors inside. They're transformed, and we all like stories about transformation. The weakling who gets somehow strength or courage and overcomes adversity, the bully. The small guy or gal who goes beyond the possibilities. We like transformation stories. Today we talk about transfiguration. I look it up on Google. What they decided that transfiguration is something that makes you beautiful, spiritually enhanced, holy. To be transfigured. To be transfigured takes the hand of God. Not just internal fortitude, but God reaching down and transfigures us. In the Transfiguration story, we hear that Jesus took Peter, James, and John up on the hilltop, and he became dazzling white. And it was a foreshadowing, an idea of what they had opened to them. A view of the resurrection in a body and a life bigger than they could ever imagine. And they came down and he said, "Don't tell anybody till the Son of Man has risen from the dead." And they go, "Oh, sure." Not understanding at all what rising from the dead meant, or even what transfiguration meant. They didn't understand, and we probably don't understand either. But it's offered to them. We hear about Moses and Elijah, the great lawgiver, the great prophet, that they were there conversing with Jesus, and we all know their names. We've heard them for all of our lives. But the reality is, Moses and Elijah are just people like us. Just created people who answered the call, who took the responsibility seriously when Jesus called, when God called them. They were transformed, they were transfigured into what they were meant to be. They did it for our welfare, did it for us. They became great by accepting the responsibility, become the light bearer for all the generations to come. Each of us has a destiny. Our destiny is to become one with God, to walk with Him, to be transfigured, to become light bearers. Through the grace, the full divine power which is offered to us, we get to take on, to be more than meets the eye. We all know we can make our lives a little more like hell or a little more like heaven. But we have this divine capacity, especially through our baptism, through the sacraments, to take the courage, to take our faith, and to manifest it in a positive way, to focus always on the good. We have to fulfill God's destiny for us. If we don't, we leave a hole. We leave a hole that makes us closer to hell, that we can actually draw more people into, and we can drag them there. We must courageously take on our responsibility, bearing the light of Christ. It opens for us, for those around us, the pathway to heaven. when each of us raises our arms in praise to God, the light illuminates the pathway for those in darkness to see the path forward. And if we all do this, the light shatters the darkness. If we're willing to stand up to face the darkness, to pierce it with truth, to pierce the darkness with the light of truth of the gospel, the truth of Jesus Christ, we can transfigure the world through the grace of God. Our sacraments allow us to be transfigured. Think of the darkness we could all dispel if we all did one thing towards the light, one more thing. We need a divine goal that provides us with a sense of identity, something that inspires us beyond ourselves, that'll make us carry the weight of our responsibilities voluntarily. We can be transformed by that vision of Christ, reorient our gaze towards God, that which is true, good, and beautiful. With the grace of God, transfigure the society around us. We must work as hard as we can. Work towards our spiritual growth like an athlete going to the Olympics, like a student maybe cramming for that final test, to move everything we can out of the way so we can focus on that one thing. 2 weeks ago, I talked about 7 weeks to flatten the curve, 7 weeks to laser focus on that which makes us beautiful, to dispel the darkness and bring forward the light. Last week, Father John talked about 96 days from Ash Wednesday to Pentecost, to focus on who we are in Christ, what we can become in Christ, what we can do for our family and society, committing ourselves to prayer, fasting, and acts of charity. What better things do we have to do? We can't go anywhere. We can only watch reruns on TV so much. Prayer, fasting, and acts of charity. We're free. We can make that decision. We can be light bearers. But it's not easy to be good. It's not easy to take the virtuous path. You have to be tough. You have to be a warrior. You have to cultivate the virtue that God has given you. It's easy to be bad. It doesn't take any courage to take the dark side. It's cowardly. Without the vision, committing ourselves to God and the divine good, it's easy to be cynical. It's easy not to see any reason to adore or worship anybody but ourselves. But we're called to something greater. Who is the king for us? To whom do we bow? To whom do we kneel? We need someone or something to which to bow down to. Otherwise, we think we are masters of the world because all we hear is take charge of the world. And in doing so, we attach ourselves to idols and bow down to the created and lose vision of the Creator. Even kings, those in power, need someone to bow down to because they know their inadequacies. They know they are weak. God, Jesus, are those whom they need to bow because that is where they are whole again. We all need to find a reason to view and see the greatest good. It should be self-evident to us. But maybe like me, we all attach ourselves to all kinds of crazy, soul-deadening things, constantly failing to see the God who made us, instead covering those things he made. Generic brands are fine for medicines and breakfast cereal. But generic gods will not make it. Only a true God that we much worship and stand up as warriors of the light will do. So what's our plan? We can become courageous warriors that bears the light for all to see, taking him into the dark places where he's needed, banishing evil from those hiding places, to be more than meets the eye. Young people in this day and every age are always searching for identity. Who are we? What are we supposed to do? And we adults in every generation somehow point them towards careers, sports, status, good grades. But what they crave is what we all crave, is a noble cause, something bigger than ourselves we can serve, a light to carry into the darkness, a wrong to correct, a load to lift our gazes to something remarkable. High school and going to college can be a soul-deadening event without this direction of a noble cause, a noble person for which to lead us. Without it, we can go all kinds of crazy places. Is it any wonder that when they go to college or high school, they rebel, they march, they curse the establishment? For we have failed to show them what is the noble cause, what is the reason to exist. We all know it's boring just to take care of ourselves. We all know it. Look to Jesus, and we will be transfigured. He is the noble cause. Many of us may have abandoned the noble cause. We have abandoned our warrior call. We have become domesticated members of the world. It's time to recall our duty, to step out of who we are, the utility of life one day after another, to take our responsibility, to not be in the shadows, to take off our glasses, reveal who we are, throw open and show the supersuit, to be that which God calls us to be through divine grace, to carry our cross, for it is our cross to carry. There's no more people on the sidelines. We're all players. We can't afford to be on the sidelines, but it's our choice. We can be more than meets the eye. To be light bearers, to pierce the darkness with Jesus, to bring the potential of light that we're all called. Our weapon is truth. And if we're clever, and if we're listening, we don't just want to be transformed, we want to be transfigured. We don't want our enemies to be destroyed. We want to bring the light to the grace of God, for they can be transformed also. So they can no longer shed darkness, that they too will join us to be light bearers. No more destruction. For we are not children of the dark, we are children of the light. We must always be in the light. The transfiguration we heard about today gives us hope in our suffering, gives hope in our confusion, that we are made to be magnificent, to be beautiful, warriors of the light, transfigured in Christ. Look to Christ and be transformed to be more than meets the eye. To be transfigured in Christ, light bearers.